Hi, you're really welcome. Whether you're a long-time member of Dublin Vineyard Church or you're joining us for the very first time, you're really, really welcome. And we're a community of people who gather around a transforming friendship of Jesus. And we've found that as we continue to follow him and listen to him and be with him, he changes us from the inside out. So please stay with us for the remainder of the 30 odd minutes that we have left. And maybe you will find that Jesus is actually worth inquiring more about. And if you find that, just contact our office at dublinvineyard.ie, and we will send you some links to some helpful and useful information. So we're in week 2 of a series called Wisdom for this season. And last week we looked at wisdom for us as individuals, as followers of Jesus. And this week I want to more focus on wisdom for us, yes, as individuals, but us as a community, as God's church. And we know that God is building his church in every season. So in this, if you like, COVID season, we want to join him in what he is doing now. And in one sense, the really big question is, well, when do we start back in-person church services? Now, every church has to answer that question based on its own unique circumstances, and churches will arrive at different answers. You know, I can't wait until we meet back together in person. I want to do it as soon as possible. So the question is, what does as soon as possible look like for Dublin Vineyard? And there's at least 2 criteria. And the first one is when we can make sure it's safe for people to meet back together again. This is a primary concern, and the country's still in the very early stages in the process of, if you like, reopening the country. And because the potential for harm is so great, even if the risk isn't huge, although the R number right now is going up, we're going to err and continue to err on the side of caution when it comes to meeting together. And if you think about it biblically, the question to ask is, well, what is the loving thing to do? How do we love the people in our city in the middle of this? Now, the people of our city and of our country, and us included, have made huge sacrifices to suppress the virus. And they continue to do that, and we continue to do that. So for us to honor them, to love them in our actions, is to do what we can do to help suppress the virus. And really what that means is delaying our in-person church meetings. So even though we really miss being together, the loving thing to do is to wait. Like, I really want to get back together again, but we're called to be loving. And so the choice to delay meeting together actually is a choice to honor God's calling on us. And in that sense, the decision to delay meeting together in person is, if you like, a decision to worship. Because worship is what we do, not just songs that we sing. So the first criteria is when it's safe for people to do so. And the second criteria for meeting together is when the experience of meeting in person is better than the experience we can have meeting online. Because even when we do begin to meet together in person, until there's a vaccine, it will never be the way that it was. And we've mentioned the issues before, like the room, we can't fill the room will have to be half empty. And a half empty room, the experience there isn't the same as the experience with a full room. Added to that, we can't do tea and coffee, we can't hang around and chat afterwards. And so the social experience won't be the same. It'll actually be less enjoyable than it used to be. And we can't do children's work separately. The children would have to stay with their parents in the main worship service. And that's exhausting for parents and exhausting for everyone else, because children don't do social distancing. They don't do quiet. We didn't when we were their age. Added to that, singing in church services has been identified as a major cause for spreading the virus. So when we meet together, until there's a vaccine, we won't be singing. And singing is a huge part of our experience together. And that's not to mention all the other things like mask wearing and entry and exit and contact tracing and the acoustic challenge of using the Y when the room is not full. So even when we do meet together in person, until there's a vaccine, it won't be the same. And here's the point. Actually, it won't be as good as an experience as we're currently having online. Because remember, the issue isn't, is Jesus with us? He said he's going to be with us wherever we're gathered, including online. I wouldn't do this if he wasn't with us. So, in a very real sense, the issue of meeting in person versus meeting online is, at least in part, an issue of the quality of our shared experience. It is not an issue of the presence of Jesus. We have experienced his presence meeting together online. So right now, we have a better shared experience online than we would have in person. So they're the two criteria that we're doing: when it's safe to do so and when the experience meeting in person is better than the experience online. So based on that, we're not rushing back to our in-person church meetings. And when we do, it will probably be in stages. And when we know it's safer than it is right now, and when the quality of our shared experience will be better in person than online. Now, we will continue to follow government guidelines, to watch what other churches are doing and other organizations. We'll continue to talk to other churches, and then we'll take steps as appropriate. And that, to me, is the loving thing to do for us as Dublin Vineyard, for the people in our community and for the people in the wider community God has called us to be a blessing to, by doing what we can to suppress the virus. So how do we join with what God is doing in this season? You see, because God is still building his church. It's not on pause. He's not waiting for us to meet together in person. He is still building his church. It's what he always does in every season. So how do we join him in that? And there's three, if you like, areas of impact. And the first one is what God is doing. He's teaching us about this spiritual journey of being his apprentices, his disciples, being with Jesus, learning to be like Jesus, and living in the kingdom of God now. You know, Jesus has been doing something really marvelous among us and in us. Like, we're in the middle of a big turning point for many individuals in our community and in our community. Like, I think 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with the growth group leaders who were leading groups through Mere Christianity. And I've been leading church settings for almost 30 years. And I've never been in a meeting with a group of leaders who were so excited about what God was doing in some of them and in some of the people in their group through this material. And it was helping them to understand and respond to the boundless riches of Christ. It's kind of like we thought we discovered this hidden treasure that was buried in a field. And what we're finding out is actually there's so much more than we ever imagined. And going forward, we're going to continue on that journey of helping us all understand and respond better to the boundless riches of Christ. And as I've been part of this journey, a phrase I heard someone say that is really, really helpful is expect to be amazed. Because we're talking about Jesus. Of course you expect to be amazed. It's what's been happening as we've been on this journey of understanding and responding to his boundless riches. So our growth groups are taking a break in August, and in September we'll relaunch some new groups. We'll have some groups that will start the first part of Mere Christianity, and others who've done that first part will start the second part of Mere Christianity. And all these, what they're doing is they're contributing to, if we're disciples or if we're apprentices, they're contributing, if you like, to our discipleship path, our apprenticeship training scheme. And we're trying to put all that together. So the first thing that God is doing is transforming us as a community. So expect to be amazed. And the second way we join in what God is doing in this season is through compassion. Since March, our COVID compassion response team have given out more than €7,000 to people in our church community and outside our church community who have been affected by COVID. Now, that doesn't include the help that different people in church have given to others in church privately, or they've given to neighbours and friends, to people who've been affected by COVID. And COVID is going to continue to impact people. They're talking about a significant recession coming, and we want to continue to lean into compassion, both as a church community and as individuals. So just to encourage you to continue to be aware that there's people all around us who need help, that we can help financially or with our time and with our energy, and as a community we will do that. And the third way we can join with what God is doing is continuing to declare the good news of his kingdom. You see, in this season, like in every season, God is still declaring his good news to all and any who will listen. And actually, there's more people listening now probably than before the lockdown. Because if you think about it, every church is online now. And with every church online, and with so many people with so much time, if you like, and typing in all sorts of search requests into Google and YouTube, from fail army to the top 50 goals in the World Cup to funny wedding videos to Pinterest, and they're typing in spirituality questions. People who might never have thought about spirituality, who might never have come to church, are now checking us and other churches out online. You see, because what COVID is doing, like every other difficult time in history, it brings an openness to spirituality for some people, an openness to asking deeper questions. And people can do that and are doing that through the anonymous avenue of Google search. If you think about Paul's strategy, Paul went to where people were. He went to the marketplace. He went to the synagogue. And in one town in Philippi, there was no synagogue to go to. So he went to where he thought the people might be, which is down by the river. And that's where the church started. The place where people are today is the internet. If Paul was around today, much of his ministry would be through the internet. And we want to respond to that reality and step into that reality. And I know that might sound very unspiritual and so unlike a traditional response to what God is doing. But it's simply following Paul's strategy of going to where people are, and his strategy that he talked about: to the Jew I became like a Jew, to the Gentile like a Gentile, to those under the law like those under the law, in order to win some. And in our society today, what COVID has done now more than ever has made the internet and social media the place where people are. It's the place where people go for information, for comfort, for daydreaming, for finding answers to the deeper questions of life that the lockdown is awakening in people. The internet is where people hang out. It's where people are. So we're following Jesus, joining him in declaring his good news in the arena where most people are these days, the internet. Like me and Debbie have used the internet to invite, or the availability of the internet to invite a few neighbours to take some next steps on their spiritual journey. These guys would never ever come to our church, not in person, but they've used the internet. They would never have done that before. We didn't have the opportunity before. So people who might never have come to church can check us out online, and they are. And in checking us out online, what's really important is that we have our stuff online as good as we can possibly make it. If it's not a good quality production, people won't stay on the site. You know, Facebook has a 3-second metric because so many people leave a site in less than 3 seconds. So it's not enough that the content would be good, that the sermon would be good, that the worship would be good. It has to be well done. It has to be well produced. Because if it's not, the person who's searching, the person that Jesus is drawing, won't stay to hear the message. Like, the world knows this. They spend huge amounts of time and energy and money investing in what they call the user experience. Like, think about your own times on the internet, on checking out websites and YouTube sites. Sometimes you leave in less than 3 seconds because you don't like the guy's voice, or you don't like the layout of the web page, or you don't like the color scheme. Excellence in what we do is how we get people's attention, so that we can tell them about our amazing Jesus. And that excellence is even more important now because we don't have the relational connection of in-person services. You know, when the Salvation Army started in the 1860s, you know, their marching band with all the music. One of the purposes of the band and the music was to get people's attention at a time when life for the working poor was really difficult. There was very little break from the drudgery, the hard work and the downtroddenness. And into this setting steps music from the Salvation Army. And they led so many people to Jesus and extended compassion to so many of the hurting in society. But the bands, the music, got people's attention. It was a brilliant strategy for the day. Now, it wouldn't achieve the same results today because society is so different. Today, especially in this COVID season, and I think going forward, where people are is on the internet. So we're there and we must be there with excellence. So, to that end, we've spent nearly €10,000 on equipment just for that purpose, making the quality of what we put out on the internet as excellent as we can make it. Computer, cameras, recording equipment, lighting. And it all takes a huge amount of time and skill, and we've had E step into that role. And he's done an amazing job, just like he has done with worship. And we want to continue to allow that to happen and continue to grow in that. And just to give you a little bit of background, Ian Lease, they're part of an organization based in the USA called Amaveo. Amaveo sends Christian workers to different parts of the world to help churches and communities to grow and to thrive. So Ian Lease are here. They've been supported financially by people in the USA who want to invest in what God is doing in advancing His kingdom here in Dublin, and they've done that through Amaveo. And really what's been happening is those people have supported us, you and me here in Dublin Vineyard, through resourcing E and Lisa's ministry among us. And if any of those supporters are watching, we just want to say thank you so much for all that you've sacrificed, to all that you've given for us. Even though we've never met you, we don't even know your name or your names, but you have blessed us by your sacrificial giving. We just say thank you and we honor you. Now, with COVID, most of that support that Ian Lease gets from the USA has decreased. There's still a few people who continue to support Ian Lease, for which we are all grateful. So now we have the privilege. We have the privilege of hiring Ian Lease and paying them from our resources to cover the decrease of funds from the USA. And that's a step of faith for us as a community. And it's a step into maturity as we ourselves resource what God has called us to do. Like I said, it's a step of faith for our church, but it's also simply our next step on this journey that God has us on. We have a God-given purpose to help others encounter the life-changing power of God's love and mercy, to help them understand and respond to the boundless riches of Christ. That's why God called us to start a church all those years ago, when He spoke to me and He said, Sean, what about my family? What about the others on this island and in this city who don't know Him yet? And we respond best to that call by stepping into the arena where most people are, which is online, to let Jesus shine into the greatest number of people's lives. Imagine, we get to join Jesus in helping more and more people encounter Him. That's our honor and our privilege and our responsibility, to do all we can, to invest all we have in helping people encounter Jesus. It's actually the only thing to do. Jesus is still the Good Shepherd. He's still seeking His lost sheep. And He's still inviting us to join Him in it, in His work, by investing our time and our energy and our money in the mission He's given us as a community. Like so many of us have been doing for so many years. And this is an invitation to continue investing your time, continue investing your energy, continue investing your money in what God has called us to do as a community. And if you haven't started investing your time and your energy and your money in what God has called us to do as a community, this is the time to start. to help us resource what God is inviting us to build. When he said, what about the others? And we can reach so many others right now. Joining Jesus in what he is doing with our time, with our energy, and with our money. And we have details on the website about how to give online and details of our bank account. So please be sure to check that out and begin to engage with that. We exist to join with Jesus to help others encounter him. And that will count for eternity. Here is our mission: to help people encounter the life-changing power of God's love and mercy. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, until he returns or he takes us home, whichever comes first. And as we do that, expect to be amazed. Expect to be amazed, because you're becoming involved with the amazing Jesus and what he is doing right now in our city, in our church, and in this generation. So I'd just like to pray. Jesus, you are God, and you are at work right now. Not just in each one of us as individuals, but you are building your church, and you're sending your church and using your church to reach those who don't know you yet. And Lord, you include us in it, and we thank you for that. Lord, would you help us to continue to invest of our time and of our money and of our energy in the cause of Jesus Christ in this city at this time. Amen.